First story. Am I the a-hole for not accommodating my brother's vegan fiancé? Full disclosure, I do eat meat, eggs, and dairy. That being said, I'm lazy and prepping and cooking meat takes more work than I'm willing to do a lot of the time, so I've built up a pretty okay repertoire of vegetarian and vegan meals. That's why I volunteered to cook last night for a small family dinner, even though I would normally never. Love my mom to bits, but if the first step isn't browning a pound of ground beef, she's a little lost on what to make. This is all a thing because my brother has recently gotten engaged to a vegan woman. None of us have really spent a lot of time with her due to pandemics and generally having our own lives. The time I have spent with her has been perfectly nice. I thought this would also be perfectly nice. So I did my best. I put together a Dijon vinaigrette salad, pasta tossed with roasted asparagus and cherry tomatoes, and because this is America where carb on carb doesn't have to be just a dream, some bread I frickin' vetted to make sure it didn't have milk or eggs in it. She could eat every single thing served. At least, I thought so. We sit down, plates are dished, she has questions. Whatever, fair enough. I can imagine that she's been in situations where things seemed safe to eat, but surprise, there's honey in the salad dressing or something. Reassurances were made, I did my homework, but she has other complaints. You roasted the veggies in olive oil? There's olive oil in the salad dressing? The pasta isn't whole wheat? This is white bread? Yes, vegan. All of it, but not stripped down to as few calories as possible. And now she won't eat. Just sat there and tore one of the rolls up into tiny pieces until the table was cleared. My brother texted me later that night about how effed up it was that she had to go home hungry, and this is where I may be the a-hole. I replied something in the effect of saying I thought I had to cook to accommodate veganism, not an eating disorder. He told me to go F myself, which, again, fair. Now, I imagine a Cold War is brewing and Mom is inevitably going to get sucked in. I also could have tried to make something healthier, though I don't think what was served was that bad. Am I the a-hole? Now the top comments. You're not the a-hole. His girlfriend is out of line for going to a dinner without bringing her own food or explaining her dietary preferences ahead of time. They obviously should have hosted. Your brother is way, way, way out of line for not reaching out to apologize to you for how the dinner went down. Sure, your quip was irreverent, but it was right, and you didn't say it until your brother came at you like you did something wrong by cooking an entire vegan dinner to accommodate his boo. Not the a-hole. You did accommodate her. You knew she had one dietary restriction, as in veganism, and you cooked everything vegan. Not just vegan options, everything that was vegan-friendly. That's next-level accommodation if you ask me. For the record, I'm a vegetarian and I'm used to bringing my own food or sticking to the salads available. I've never been to a non-vegetarian household where they make only vegetarian food to accommodate me, nor do I expect them to. And if it were me, I'd be thanking you for days. That's a really nice thing to do. Now, she has some other dietary restrictions that she didn't tell you about, and then apparently you're the a-hole for not reading minds and just knowing without nobody telling you that she has some other requirements for food. Like, how does that even make sense to your brother? If I were you, I'd be super passive-aggressive and say something along the lines of, I'm so sorry I haven't upgraded my seer abilities yet and thus was unable to just guess your girlfriend's food restrictions. I will let you know when I'm a full-on psychic so I can have all the information without anyone telling me, and then you'll be welcome in my house again. Not the a-hole, not the a-hole, not the a-hole, not the a-hole. Your girlfriend is the biggest a-hole and your brother for enabling her and snapping at you when you were nothing but perfectly nice. Second story. Am I the a-hole for walking out on my job? I, 29-year-old female, work as a waitress at a restaurant with a point system. It's 1 point if you were late, 3 points to call off with notice, and 5 points for calling off within 4 hours of your shift. This is fine with me as I have no points this year and have only called off once since 2018. I'm the type who covers shifts, stays late, and generally just goes to do my job. Last week, I ended up calling off and was out for a week due to being hospitalized in the ICU with a horrible infection. I let my boss know at 2 a.m. that I was being sent out by helicopter and kept her informed of everything going on. Today was my first day back. I'm not 100% yet, but like many places, we are short-staffed. When I came in today, I opened and got to work. My boss came in 2 hours later and called me into her office. She informed me I was getting 8 points, losing my discounts and bonuses for 90 days, and was on probation. I was dumbfounded and told her I wasn't signing the papers as it was out of my control. She said if I didn't, I would be terminated. I told her not to bother and walked out. I'm now getting calls and texts from her and my coworkers saying they need me, and I was a jerk for quitting over something so small. My husband thinks I was in the right because it was ridiculous that I was getting punished for almost dying. Am I the a-hole? Now the top comments. Not the a-hole. You were so sick that you needed to be airlifted by helicopter and relocated to seek special treatment outside of where you currently live, which is, well, outside of your control. Then you went above and beyond by keeping your boss in the loop the whole time as if your boss were part of your family, something you should not have had to do. Lastly, as a favor to them, even though you're not 100% better, you still made the effort to come in. And what do? They take away your perks and threaten you with termination. Not only are you not the a-hole, but you should also be proud of yourself. You stood up for yourself. And it would seem you call their bluff since now they want you back. Do not go back. I have a family member, cousin, who is working as a server in a restaurant and diner, and I would really love to see them do the same. Not the a-hole times 1,000. An employer penalizing a staff member in good standing for nearly dying. You weren't even being considerate enough to communicate during the whole ordeal. Employers keep saying people don't want to work, but then treating them like they're not people. Your country needs more unions. This should never have happened. Not the a-hole. You left a toxic environment and you do not owe those people a thing. Going to the hospital isn't something small and shouldn't be punished. I'm glad you're away from boss and coworkers now. Third story. Am I the a-hole for reading at home with my husband? I enjoy reading books, but my husband feels that it is rude for me to read when we are both home because I am ignoring him. To be clear, this does not happen in excess by anyone's definition. I have read a maximum of 5 entire books since we got together a decade ago, primarily to avoid upsetting him. We have very similar work schedules. Recently, I bought a book that was the first in a series of 3, and it started this argument to a higher degree than usual because of the fact that it is a series. I've considered going to a cafe and reading in my car, but that seems like a waste of gas when I could just read at home where it's more comfortable anyway. But doing so requires that I tell him I'm about to start reading in the study, bedroom, etc., and that I expect not to be interrupted for the next 30 minutes to an hour, which is what I intend to do if the results here favor me. Though this will absolutely upset him because he approaches me for comment or to tell stories every 10 to 15 minutes on average. So, am I the a-hole? Edit. Wow, I got a ton of feedback. This will take a while just to read, and I'm sure I can't respond to everything, so I will add a few things here. He does the same things with headphones, but aside from expecting me to be available for immediate comment, he is not abusive in any way. I have friends that I see regularly. I can choose to leave the house without question. I have full access to all financial accounts. I can make semi-substantial financial choices, for example, a weekend getaway with friends or buying a new office desk, without permission or guilt. This does not involve yelling, but there are guilt trips. They are framed just as what I have expressed here, that he feels ignored and it's rude. Number 2, he works totally alone, and I do think that is a source of his understandable need for lots of evening and weekend interaction. I just feel that this request is an inappropriate expression of that need. Number 3, no, he doesn't have many friends. Just one, really. Otherwise, it's mostly just my family that he spends time with. He doesn't live nearby, but he gets along really well with mine, and they all genuinely enjoy each other's company. Number 4, yes, we do have pets. Number 5, yes, he has hobbies, but they're easy for him to pick up and put down without notice. Lots of household projects, carpentry, etc. No, he does not like to watch sports or play video games. Number 6, we both already have therapists who we have seen bi-weekly for years. It's mainly been individual therapy aside from an approximate 6-month period of couples therapy during a time of crisis in 2019. Number 7, yes, he is able to read, but he has some mild insecurities about his intellectual abilities. Now the top comments. Not the a-hole. Holy potato, what is even wrong with your husband? Is he that insecure that he just won't let you have a few minutes to yourself? Is he that needy? Everyone needs me time. If he doesn't understand it and doesn't want to change, you may rethink that relationship, OP. Not the a-hole. This is controlling and weird. He's not a guest you invited over, he's your husband that you live with. It is not your job to entertain him 24/7. Please read the books. 5 books in 10 years is not enough books. I'll read for hours a week as me time. My husband encourages it. I own over 350 physical books and probably more ebooks than that. It brings my husband happiness to see me read, and he actively buys me books because it's something that brings me joy. It's a hobby, relaxation time, and good for your mind to decompress. You're only asking for 30 minutes at a time, and your husband has an issue with this? He's asking you to give up something you enjoy that's not illegal or damaging for his own ego and wants and needs. That's not right at all. Did you read more before marriage? It's heartbreaking if you did that. You had to give up part of yourself for him. Is this normal of him when you try to do something just for you? Do you see friends still? You're not the a-hole. 4th story. Am I the a-hole for not selling my home to benefit my former stepchildren? My stepchildren's mother wants me to sell my home so that they can receive 50% of the proceeds. I am refusing. She has told me that I am hurting my late husband's children and that I am an a-hole. My late husband, David, had 2 children, Thomas and Megan. Their mother, Kelly, had primary custody with David getting the kids every other weekend. Kelly was just a joy, dragging David into court at every opportunity. If David found $1 on the street, Kelly would drag him into court to get her fair share. David always took care of his kids, paying not just his child support but also much more. When David and I decided to build our home, we set up what would happen if one of us died before the other. Basically, the survivor would get the house, but when the survivor died or sold the home, 50% of the proceeds would go to their designated heirs. For David, his children. For me, it was my sister. We were both contributing equally to the new home. Then, in 2018, David decided to change jobs, and he was taking 2 weeks off between the end of his old job and the start of his new one. David had almost all of his insurance, including life insurance, through his employer. He was killed in an accident a week before he was to start his new job. David had a will that left his savings, we kept our finances separate, and $401,000 to his children, but there wasn't a large amount. There was no life insurance. We did have mortgage insurance, so when David died, the house was paid off. Kelly hated me and did everything she could to make her kids do so as well. So it was no surprise we didn't have any contact after David passed. I was surprised when Kelly reached out to me a couple of weeks ago. She said that she and the children are struggling financially since she ended up having to close down her business in 2020. She is working now, but at a low-paying call center job. She wants me to sell the house so that half the proceeds would go to the kids, and she can use that for their education and medical expenses. According to Kelly, Megan is having medical issues and needs treatment that her insurance does not cover and Kelly cannot afford. I said no. I was not selling my home. Honestly, I could care less what Kelly thinks. She has been a bee to me since the day I met her. However, David's parents, whose opinion I do respect, also called to say that they believe it is what David would have wanted. I told them I would think about it. I know my husband loved his children more than anything and would have done anything for them. Right now, living without rent and mortgage, I am on track to retire very early. I have decided I am not giving that up. His parents told me that David would be ashamed of me for being a selfish bee, which I admit hurt to hear. Am I the a-hole? Now the top comments. Kelly has demonstrated her propensity to squeeze your late husband for every cent she could, and now that he's dead, she's setting her sights to you. She's shown you who she is, so believe her. Go full no contact with her if you can. Do not budge an inch on selling your house. This will sound cold, but the stepchildren are ultimately not your responsibility. If you want to find a way to help with Megan's medical expenses, that's your prerogative, but find and get a lawyer so that you can execute it in a way that Kelly has no say over. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Stick to your guns. This is your house. It might be difficult getting his parents to understand that, but here's what you say. I respect both of you quite a bit, but I have to do right by myself right now. This is my house, and the people you want me to sell this for have never shown me the slightest bit of respect. I've taken your opinion into consideration, and I remain firm on my decision. I will not be selling my house. I hope you can respect my choices as well, and understand that I will not tolerate any harassment or pressure on this, not from you two, nor from Kelly. This is my house, and this is my decision. You talk a lot about what your son would have wanted, but ask yourself if he'd have been okay with the way you've talked to me. And as far as Kelly is concerned, this is my house, I'm not selling it. Good day. Last story. Am I the a-hole for doing a welfare check on my girl who's living in a dangerous environment? My girl, 28-year-old female, and I, 32-year-old male, have been together 8 months. She lives with her friend Jared, 27-year-old male, who owns the home. Jared seemed like a great guy, very friendly, down to earth, and weeks from becoming a physiatrist. Medical studies were demanding of him, but we all got along well when I was over. I'm a cop. Where we live, marijuana is common, but still illegal. As a law enforcer, I honor the law, but also anti-drugs for personal reasons. It's not harmless. My peers who smoked marijuana in school are now deadbeats, and my best mate got rejected from the army because he'd used marijuana before and now drives trucks. I have not discussed this view with my girl, but I think being a law enforcer implies my stance, plus nothing about her life gives me a reason to suspect she thinks drug use is okay. Sometimes when Jared hung with us, I suspected he had used marijuana. I'm trained to suspect it, but Jared's profile didn't fit an addict, nor would my girl accept living with one. Likely my judgment was wrong and he was tired from studies. Unfortunately, my instincts were correct. A few weeks ago, I arrived at my girl's house before she had. I let myself in and went to the balcony. Jared was there. We were casually chatting when he just puffs on a joint and then even offers me a puff. I'm fuming. This guy literally offered a cop drugs, so clearly he's offered my girl drugs. I'm terrified for her safety in this environment. Really, as a law enforcer, it is my civic duty to enforce the law, but my judgment was that Jared could be reasoned with. I made him aware of my obligation and that his drug use also hurts society and others around him, as well as himself. As a cop, and because he lives with my girl, I'll charge him if my girl is put in danger again. He denied the severity of his use, said he will stop around me, but doesn't respect my attitude or behavior in his house. Mildly insulting response after letting him off, but understandable it wasn't taken well. He's an addict, and I've made use harder for him in his own home. My girl comes home, we both explain what's unfolded. My girl says it's a lot, and I should go home for the night. The next day, the city's in lockdown. I'm not able to address with Jared nor my girl what happened. The last few weeks, she's talking to me less and less. My anxiety knowing my girl is locked down in such a toxic situation is overwhelming. Last week, I decided to do a welfare check but send my partner in. He did it, but afterwards said that was effed up of me. Later that night, my girl cut it entirely and filed a complaint against me. I truly didn't believe I did anything wrong and was just trying to protect my girl, but I've lost my girl and in career trouble. But both my girl and my partner think I'm effed, so maybe I am. Am I the a-hole? Now the top comments. You're the a-hole. The phrase, my girl, is coming across as very creepy. Looks like karma really is what they say. Came to the comments literally to say he would be the a-hole for purely repeatedly calling his adult ex-partner my girl, so much that it made me throw up a little bit in my mouth. OP, you're the a-hole. This is obsessive, controlling behavior masquerading as being protective and an extraordinary abuse of power. Very justified to now be in trouble at work and single.